generally known as the merits or positive implications of the price mechanism, and we also have the negative side of it, which are the disadvantages, demerits, or negative implications of the price mechanism. Being able to enumerate them here, it encourages the production of high quality goods, that is an advantage. And when do we have high quality goods? Because the price mechanism allows for competition. Competitors are competing for the same consumer, same market, and that one who produces better quality will be the one to attract a bigger market and be earning more income and have more profits. So it's advantageous on the side of the consumers who are going to be availed with high quality products arising out of the competition, being carried out by the many producers, as the system allows for many producers. Then it promotes hard work and increased output. People work hard. Why? Whenever prices are high, they tend to increase on their levels of output in order to tap that high price and earn more. So people, other than being idle, relaxing, doing nothing, they will go into production. They will look for employment. They look for work so that they are also able to work and tap that high price and be able to get out of poverty. So this will lead to an increase in the levels of output in an economy, which is good, because with more output of goods and services, many of our needs are going to be satisfied, and that will improve our welfare or standard of living. It avails a wide variety of products to the consumer. Other than having the products being of high quality, there is also a variety. Variety also comes from the many participants in the production process, and this makes the consumer to have quite a number of items to choose from. The consumer has quite a variety of commodities to choose from because of the existence of many suppliers or many producers, and this is going to satisfy his various needs. The moment you see that one commodity is not there, another one is there, we can serve the same purpose equally. Then it encourages flexibility in production. We have just seen that resources move to where they are highly required or highly paid, and that is flexibility. Don't stick resources where they are not profitable. Move them to other areas. Venture into the production of other commodities. As resources are versatile, they can be employed in a multiplicity of activities, so there is a lot of flexibility in production where resources move from where they are not highly paid to where they are highly paid, and that is indicated by their prices. It encourages arbitrage. Arbitrage is the moving of commodities from where they are in plenty but at lower prices, and then you take them to that other area where they are in shortage and at high prices. So you are trying to reconcile demand and supply. As you have already seen, demand and supply forces are the ones interacting to determine the price and resource allocation. So under the price mechanism, arbitrage is possible. Assuming that the infrastructure is well developed, goods can be moved from a region where they are in plentiful supply as a result of many people engaging in their production, and wherever supply is in plenty, prices usually are low. So plentiful supply is accompanied with low prices of those commodities, and you might find that in another area there is a shortage of those commodities, and because of that shortage, the prices are actually high. So what is done, the people who are in business, or in most cases, the speculators, they are the ones who engage in arbitrage. They are going to move goods from areas where they're in plenty and at low prices, and take them and sell them in those other areas where they are in short supply and at high prices. Hence, stabilizing the prices. We shall expound more on this when we come to price fluctuations and how price fluctuations can be minimized. Arbitrage is one of them. Take goods from where they're in plenty and at a low price, and the moment you reduce the supply, prices automatically come up. And in that area where prices were high, you are now increasing the supply. Once the supply increases, their prices also come down, such that in the long run there is an equilibrium in both areas where there was a shortage and a surplus. Then it is a cheap system to maintain. We've already seen this one among the role. There is no need for government departments for supervision and monitoring. So if you are operating under the price mechanism, it operates freely on its own, and the adjustments are made freely by the forces of demand and supply. No need for government to control the prices, regulate them via the maximum or the minimum. It has been observed that it is a cheap system to operate. It helps in the distribution of income. We have already seen that income goes to those whose resources and prices command higher prices, and those whose resources and goods command lower prices, they will stay with low incomes. Hence, incomes move to those who have commodities of high prices and less income to those with commodities which command lower prices. Hence, income being distributed in that kind of way via the price mechanism itself. Then it provides an incentive to economic growth. Economic growth is a persistent increase in the volume of goods and services over a given period of time. The moment prices are persistently rising, consumers who have seen that producers are going to invest more in the production of that commodity, which has a higher price. And if the majority of the commodities are commanding higher prices, investors will be many, and there will be that kind of systematic increase in the volume of goods and services in the long run, which is regarded as economic growth in an economy. Goods and services persistently increasing. Why? More investors are undertaking the production of a variety of goods and services, and in the long run you come out with a big supply. Then it leads to increased employment and jobs. Why? There are many producers producing a variety of goods, and all of them need workers. So workers will be taken on in those many activities that have been set up as a result of the freedom of choice by the individuals to do whatever they want. So a lot of jobs will be created. Then decentralizes power as it lies in the individuals. We have seen that resource owners, who are mainly in the households, which is the smallest unit in an economy, they will be able to sell their resources to those who can offer them higher prices. And we find that now they have the power to decide, not the government deciding for them. So instead of power or decisions coming from up to the bottom, which is known as the trickle-down theory in decision making, now we find that it is decentralized. Even decisions can come from the bottom, the smallest units, and go up, as everybody has the freedom to do so. Then consumers buy cheap goods out of competition. You find that now the competitors are many, all of them supplying virtually the same commodities or commodities which are substitutable, and you find that they are overflooding the market. And the moment the market is overflooded, definitely the prices will go down. As we see, there is flexibility and that automatic stabilization policy which is brought about by the price. So automatically you are competing. It doesn't mean that you are the only supplier. So in the long run, the goods are going to be cheaper because there is an abundance of them on the market, which will make their prices to go down, and that is a benefit to the consumers, who end up enjoying cheap goods because of the many suppliers that are competing to supply the same profitable price. And that is when in the long run others are going to be outcompeted when they cannot afford to sell at that relatively low price. And on the disadvantageous side, we find that it leads to uneven distribution of income. Here we have seen that it encourages the distribution of income, helps in the distribution of income. But as it is left to distribute the income, the distribution becomes unfair or uneven. The rich get richer because they have access to more resources that are commanding higher prices, and the poor get poorer. So that one is not good. Then leads to the growth of monopolies. And we have already seen in the roles that some firms are outcompeted, which are inefficient, and they go out of production, and the few which remain become stronger and they monopolize the market, hence exploiting the consumers through high prices and poor quality as the competition is no longer there. Leads to consumer exploitation, which is again related to monopoly. Consumers are exploited under the price mechanism by government not regulating the quality of the product. You might find that people are just interested in producing and selling at a higher price regardless of the quality, as government is not interfering. So that becomes a disadvantage on the side of the consumer. Not only that, but usually they are confronted with artificial shortages so that they are able to sell at higher prices. And not only that, we find that the consumers are going to be brainwashed through the system of advertising so that they buy a good out of the words they have heard being talked about the good, and in the long run, when you take the good, it's not actually satisfying the need that you had expected, hence being exploited. Leads to unemployment, though here we have seen that the leads to increased employment because of the many participants. At the same time, unemployment also arises out of the operation of the price mechanism due to people being replaced by efficient machines, and also some farms or some producers getting outcompeted. Then it does not adjust to rapid structural changes. There are some occurrences which may be natural and they require immediate supply of a particular good. For instance, an area which is confronted by a flood, a landslide, an earthquake, we should not wait for the price mechanism to respond towards the production of such goods. Government should be there to mobilize resources and help the people and get them out of the bad situation. But with the price mechanism operating, there is no government interference. Such a catastrophe may befall a given economy, a given area, and you find that the people are left to suffer because prices are not indicating anything in that area so that production or supply can be increased. So that makes it disadvantageous because it does not adjust to rapid structural changes. A structural change appears and it requires an immediate response to increase supply and lower prices, but you find that in that area there is scarcity, prices are high, and people are continuing suffering on top of the natural calamity that has befallen them. So there, the price mechanism becomes a disadvantage. Then it encourages wasteful competition, which leads to resource wastage. That is the duplication. There are many, all of them producing similar commodities because they are profitable, and we find that our resources are depleted, they are exhausted without minding about the future. Misallocation of resources, where we find that resources only go to those who are ready to pay higher prices. What about the priority goods? What about the merit goods? What about the cheap goods? These are left out, and that becomes a disadvantage to the class of consumers that were depending on such commodities, but now they are not being produced. Why? They are not attaching any profitability as their prices are low. Leads to economic instabilities or fluctuations, which is again arising out of the competition. Prices rise and fall depending on demand and supply because the forces of demand and supply governing the market. So economic instabilities like inflation, like unemployment are inevitable, and that is a problem or disadvantage of the price mechanism. The divergence between private and social benefits, we have already seen among the role. Again, it was a negative role whereby the private sector, because it is given an upper hand in the allocation and production, it is going to produce using whatever techniques of production are going to be more efficient on its side, hence causing a lot of pollution, and the society at large is not benefiting from that. They will have to have a lot of noise where the industry is. They are going to be taking dirty water because of the disposal of the waste products, and they are going to have environmental kind of degradation and pollution. So all these are going to be social disadvantages as a result of the private sector benefiting, since each individual has a large measure of freedom. The distortion of consumer choices through advertising. People are brainwashed because you want to sell more, you are competing with others. There is a lot of persuasive advertising which is brainwashing the minds of the consumers, and you find that they are not going to make the right choices, which would have been the case that consumers, producers, and resource owners are free to make their own decisions. But here the consumers, their choices are being distorted through advertising that brainwashes their mind, and they are compelled to buy a commodity which they wouldn't have bought had it not been advertised. Then leads to quick depletion of resources. Again, this is because of the wasteful competition and duplication of goods and the participation of many people in the production of a particular good. Then there is failure to attain systematic growth, which needs government planning. Here there is no government interference. They tell the government, leave us alone, and as a result, some areas which may need government to plan for them and allocate resources to them, because they are not profitable, they will not be there. So in the long run, you are having unbalanced growth, where certain areas grow at the expense of the other, simply because they are not attractive to investors, and government is not also involved in it. As you have seen, you may be asking, what is the difference now between the roles and the disadvantages? The statement of the points is the same, but there are some additions as far as the disadvantages are concerned, but the role can become an advantage or a disadvantage respectively. There is no clear demarcation that this is a role on its own and it's not a merit or a demerit, but one is deduced from the other. And in the long run, you may write accordingly. Now we have some study questions here, and we find that there was a question which appeared this year in our Senior 6. It was question number 2, and it had taken around 15 years without appearing. So you never know. Some people may have stopped teaching about the price mechanism, saying that they are no longer examining it, only for this year to have it as number 2. And it was very simple and easy to pass, and it was reading as follows. Section B, it was question number 2. It had 2 parts. Explain the merits and the demerits of the price mechanism, which are here. We are supposed to explain them. How the price mechanism encourages the production of high quality goods, simply bringing the issue of many participants, many producers, and because there are many, if you are to sell, your product has to be of a higher quality. So those were the points which were required as far as that part is concerned. Merits and demerits, and that's why I also had to put them here together so that you can be able to look at them, try to explain them, how that factor becomes an advantage and how this factor becomes a disadvantage. And the examiner wanted at least any 7 of them. Explain 7 here, explain another 7 here, and 7 plus 7, you get your 14 marks. And then part B was requiring the candidate to suggest measures that should be taken to control the defects of the price mechanism in an economy. So these are suggestive, and you had to state them in a way that government should. Government should, because they are simple suggestions, they are not already under application, so they also had to, and it was paper 1, and it's in an economy. You don't need to be actually practical or give priority, but suggest what you think can be done to reduce the disadvantages of the price mechanism. So the defects are the disadvantages. So where you see the word defects, it is a negative implication, and they wanted you to suggest ways which can try to reduce the defects or the negative implications or the demerits of the price mechanism. How can government now come in? And when you want to reduce the defects, it means that now you have introduced government intervention. Individuals on their own, they cannot intervene in their own actions. It is the government which comes in to interfere with the private actions. So government intervention is what is required here to make whatever has been a problem to be right once again. So if there is an income distribution of income, what you do, this is when government comes in with progressive taxation. Tax the rich highly and tax the poor with low levels of or low proportions of taxes, such that whatever money you get away from the rich, you use it to prevail goods for the poor. We have seen that here, some goods are left out, the cheap ones. So tax the people who are rich and who are attracting resources towards the production of the commodities which they desire at the expense of the poor people, so that the money you get in form of taxes is catering for the provision of the cheap goods for the poor and also the public goods which don't attract any profit. Then leads to growth of monopolies. What do you do with monopolies? They have already come. They are there because of outcompeting others. Then don't wait for monopolies to emerge. Subsidize the firms before they are outcompeted. If you see that they're inefficient and their prices are low, as a government, give them subsidies so that you protect them from declining or closing down. The same with unemployment. Don't wait for firms to close and create unemployment. Subsidize them and make sure that you are able to control that problem of unemployment, which may be severe than even the monopoly case you are looking at. It leads to consumer exploitation. What can government do? There are standards, national standards and measures, which are there to make sure that the quality is the one which is satisfactory and also shortages are not there. So government can come in to introduce rationing, to introduce maximum prices that cater for the consumer so that consumers can be availed with goods at lower prices, as government has already tried to establish maximum prices or control them at a maximum level. Then adjust to rapid structural changes. This is where again government comes in instead of waiting for prices to attract resources towards the provision of goods in an area which has been hit by a structural catastrophe. Let government itself provide the needed food, free of charge even, or even at subsidized prices, and the people in that area will be made better. Then encourages wasteful competition, resource wastage. Government can put a measure on the exploitation of these resources. That's why in Uganda we have NEMA, so that we don't pollute the environment. And we find that the fishing, the people who try to overexploit the fish or to overfish, the people are there, army men or whoever, and they are trying to monitor and supervise so that there is no exploitation or overuse of the scarce resources. Then we find that leads to economic instabilities and fluctuations. You can try to control inflation by also engaging in production as a government so that you take away the artificial shortages and prices come down. Then if it is private benefits at the expense of the social, whoever is polluting, impose a tax on him. And maybe demarcate areas where they should set up their industries other than leaving them to answer where to produce by themselves by looking at the market potential. So if an industry is going to be highly pollutive, then don't allow it to be located in the residential area. No, as a government, you have that authority to make them go elsewhere, and you make the people not to suffer at the expense of the gain of the private investor or industrialist. Then distortion of consumer choices through advertising. Well, this one, choices are there, so it can, there is no way you can eliminate advertising completely, but we assume that at least make the consumers to be more knowledgeable. This kind of advertising arises as a result of consumer ignorance. They are ignorant, and that's why advertising comes in. But the moment the consumers are aware of the prices and the availability of goods and where to find them, then advertising may not be necessary and consumers' choices may not be distorted. The quick depletion of resources, government has to control how they are going to be exploited, and for that matter, if you have those regulations, then you can be able to regulate that one. Then systematic growth, that's when government comes in with either short-term or long-term planning, which are perspective, will have a comprehensive plan or a sectoral plan, whichever sector you see that is lagging behind because it's not favored by the price mechanism, you come in as a government and plan for that area or plan for that sector. And they wanted only 6 points from there. So, suggesting measures that should be taken to control the defects of the price mechanism in an economy was a matter of if you are able to get the disadvantages, then you suggest what can be done to reduce these disadvantages and you get your 10 marks. Many people fear the question of the price mechanism, but the moment you understand it, it is one of the easiest and you can be able to get all your full marks. And usually it appears in paper 1, it is theoretical. There is no way you can find it in applied because it is totally